School is funding us to come here, and really thank you for Brad for setting that up and making that happen. But any money that we get is going to go towards supporting prisoners that we work with, if anything that goes in this hat. And there's a bunch of zines and books up there if you want to chip in and take something home. I'll put up those things. And I want to talk a little bit about freedom, what that word means. You know, I think a lot of the stuff that is troubling or difficult that I talk about in this play comes down to that, is that we don't really have a good understanding of what the word freedom means in America. So does anybody have a definition of freedom you can share?
People having control over their own lives.
Okay.
Their own community.
And what, okay, that makes sense. But what else? I mean, anything else? Any other ideas?
Yeah, I think I've heard that there's a distinction between freedom and liberty.
Okay. Which is?
It's an interesting, I think it's would take more time than we have to discuss the difference.
Cool. Well, one definition of freedom that I really like that comes from Sean Swain, the guy whose poem we read earlier. He defines freedom as the absence of outside regulation or control in your lives. So he defines it negatively. And the useful thing about that definition is that it's really clear. Like you can see where there's outside regulation, where there's outside control. Because I think, you know, control of your life, that could be defined in a lot of different ways.
Can I pull you up short just for a second?
Yeah.
If you're going to go that way, I would have to add that freedom would be safety or protection of some sort from force and fraud.
Right. So, but force and fraud are forms of outside control that come into your life.
Well, fraud is certainly, I don't know, control, but it's certainly deception and a breach of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, but using Sean's definition of freedom, if you look at our current society and the number of cops and laws and surveillance cameras, we're living under the most elaborate and sophisticated apparatus of control known to human history. We're more unfree than people ever have been. And so I think that's...
Well, that's where resistance comes in.
Right.
That's where our human collective agency comes in to fight this. And so I want to do a brainstorm on, you know, things that we can do to resist, specifically the prison state. And if you have any examples of local going on, then feel free to bring that up as well. Yes.
Coming from California, I noticed they have a lot more police and prisons than we have in Washington State. They have a lot more money. It has occurred to me many times that if there was some way to prevent the government from having all that money, that it wouldn't be able to spend so much of it on the police and prisons. Although the conflict there is that money can also, being fungible, be used for positive things like healthcare and helping people that can't help themselves, or you know all the things we think of. But yet I'm torn because it's like a tool that the government also uses to torture people, to imprison them unjustly, to control them. So the money thing seems really big as far as resistance in my mind.
Okay. Maybe demand less expenditure on the prison part.
Well, if they don't have the money, they can't spend it.
I think supporting prisoner struggles for better conditions, more economy, or even just like getting released, or like supporting them for,
Yeah, especially the reentry piece too, right? Like how can we help folks carry on and, you know, and not return? Recidivism rates, you know, are really high. Is there anything going on locally
The federal detention center, there are a number of demonstrations and rallies there to release the detainees who have not been convicted of any crime, and they want immigration reform. So I think that would be resistance to, and that's a for-profit detention center run by GEO. So there's a lot of resistance against that by appealing to the press and to the public and demonstrating physically outside the facility.
If there are no, outside of that, in terms of supporting prisoner circles, how?
There's letter writing campaigns here.
Right, yeah, thank you so much. Letter writing, amplifying prisoners' voices, you know, somehow, some way, by, you know, maybe publishing zines or putting it on Indymedia or something like that.
There was one man, I hope he's still alive because I know he's HIV positive, but he had a huge collection of books that he would get from the community, and he would send those to prisoners around the country.
Yeah,
Books to prisoners.
yeah. Anything like that in Olympia or?
We have Olympia books to prisoners.
Oh, nice, okay.
We also have had, until we got kicked out, we had a prison do-up project.
Oh, shoot.
People that don't know what that is, it's volunteers going into women prisons or people who are struggling with women, and supporting them from like anything like access to reproductive control, for like getting birth, and like just like advocating like less harsh, like, for instance, against like handcuffing people to like their bed when they're giving birth, like stuff like this.
Yeah.
I've also heard of some families of prisoners forming on their own spontaneous mutual support groups.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we really have to center families of folks who are on the inside, because that is most likely going to be their support system, not for everyone, but for a good chunk.
Sometimes like they'll carpool up for visits. I mean, they cooperate with each other to try to help each other.
Right, right. And then something that I do and that I heard last night in Eugene is bringing classes into prison. So in Eugene, they have some sort of like social justice reading club. So right now they're reading Angela Davis, Our Prison's Obsolete. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. They got those books in there. But yeah. Anything else? Well, yeah, well, I guess anything else, because vibrant communities presents.
There are starting to be, and we've heard over the last month or so, several ex-prisoners forming political consciousness and awareness activist groups inside the prison walls themselves. I mean, you know, people hear just about gangs, but these people are actually have become revolutionaries inside the prison walls, and they're raising political consciousness of other prisoners that are in there.
You need theater.
Yeah? Talk more about that? Oh. Yeah. So in the class that I do, we use a lot of Theater the Oppressed games and activities as a way of playfully and spontaneously dealing with really heavy topics and connecting personal struggles, personal experiences with structural patterns of violence. So yeah, that's been great. All right, well, I think that's it. Ben, anything else from you?
There's a new website that I'm building called supportprisonerresistance.net, where I'm trying to gather information about prisoner struggles, whether it's hunger strikes, work stoppages, anything going on. There are prisoners that I work with have for years been talking about and wanting to see an
Thank you.